Can you hear me?
They
Okay,
can hear you, you can start.
all right. So, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adeoye Olasunkanmi. I will be your facilitator for this course. We will be going through our discussion on GST 112, that's logic and philosophy. If you recall, when we started this course, we focused majorly on 4 study sessions. So this course is going to be a revision course on the 4 study session that we have discussed. So the 4 study session, the first study session discussed the nature and the subject matter philosophy, where we gave a definition for philosophy. Then we move to the second study session, which is epistemology. That's the study of knowledge. Then we proceed to metaphysics, and the last one, which is fallacy. So we are going to take this study session one after the other to look at what we have discussed, and recall that this is more like a crash course, which is going to compress everything that we have learned so far. So now the first study session, that's the nature and the subject matter of philosophy. Here we gave a different definition from different philosophers. So people like Socrates, people like Ludwig, and some other philosophers, we gave their definition. Then we went further to look etymologically into the word philosophy. That was when we discovered that philosophy actually came from a Greek word. So it is that Greek word that we now divided into two, where we have philo and Sophie. So from here, we see that philo is love, while Sophie means wisdom. When we now combine these two words together, we therefore came to a conclusion that philosophy is a love for wisdom. Not wisdom on its own, but a love for wisdom. Then we went further to say philosophy is critical inquiry into nature of things. What do we mean by that? What we mean by that is that philosophy tends to ask critical questions into nature of things. So that is why then we came to a conclusion that philosophy is love for wisdom and critical inquiry into nature of things. Then we went further to have a kind of because from our discussion we were made to understand that there is a kind of relationship between philosophy and theology. You know, theology, that means a religion, so to say. So now we now see how close philosophy is to theology and how they differ. So it is from here we now see that philosophy, it is defined as a no man's land between science and theology. It is like science because it engaged into understanding of the world, and that is the empirical analysis, something like experiment. You know, when you are doing in science, you do experiments in order to substantiate things, to establish the basis. So philosophy is also like that because philosophy asks critical questions into nature of things. Then we say it is like theology because it goes into world beyond sense and experience. I hope you are understanding me now. So also theology, it goes into world beyond sense and experience. When you consider religions as a typical example, there are some things that they are not fathomable, beyond sense, beyond experience. Now, how does this differ? How does philosophy differ from theology? Philosophy differ from, how does it differ from theology and how does it differ from science? It differs because they uses empirical examination and experimentation to study the world, and from theology because theology relies on faith, whereas philosophy does not rely on faith because they ask critical questions critical questions. If you can't provide answers to such questions, philosophy does not believe in it. I hope you understand me now. But so far, you can provide answers to such questions. Philosophy believes in them. Now, that's it. So you can see the definition I gave you earlier that philosophy is critical inquiry into nature of things. Critical inquiry into nature of things. So that is how we come about the definition you are looking at. Now you can see that each of these definitions, they are interesting in their own. That's love for wisdom, critical inquiry into nature of things, and some definitions given by philosophers that were discussed in this study session. And to some degree, they capture what philosophy is about, or at least what people think they are about. Now, what you can glean from all the definitions that we have is that philosophy focuses majorly on human existence. Majorly on human existence. If I'm alive, why am I alive? Why am I doing what I'm doing? Is what I'm doing actually the right thing? So those are the things that entails in philosophy. Now, let us move to conception of philosophy. Now, when we talk about conception, conception is like ideas that different philosophers have about philosophy. That is what we call conception in philosophy. Now, going by the fact that there is no univocal definition for philosophy, and several attempts have been made by different scholars to capture definitions by classifying the different ways of doing philosophy under some conception. For instance, we now have a Socratic conception of philosophy. Now, actually, the conception of philosophy that we focus on in this study, in this our module, that's GST 112, they are grouped into four. Socratic conception of philosophy, philosophy as contemplation, philosophy as analysis, and philosophy as the units of theory and practice. Now, let us take this conception one after the other. Now, the Socrates conception of philosophy, according to this philosophy, it should be what this philosophy is telling us is that philosophers, they should be critical and they must live by example. Now, what do we mean by live by example? That means they must practice what they are doing. They must be ready to stand by the truth, and they must be dogmatic in what they are doing. This conception is usually associated with Socrates and Plato. The second one is philosophy as contemplation. Now, this philosophy as contemplation, they see philosophical question and answer as open-ended. That means as you are asking one question, you are leading to more question and more question and more question. So philosophers are citizens of the universe, versatile in knowledge of the world, and do not believe in compartmentalization of knowledge. This is usually associated with Bertrand and Russell. So when you are seeing philosophical question that are leading from one question to another, such conception is philosophy as contemplation. Now, the third one is philosophy as analysis. According to this conception, it said philosophy should be contented with linguistic clarification and conceptual analysis. What does it mean by linguistic clarification? So far, you can give a detailed explanation of a thing. It said philosopher should be contented. That's a philosophy as analysis. And the last one, that's philosophy as the unity of theory and practice. Now, this philosophy can be seen as a way of uniting theory and practice to enable us make the world better than it is. Uniting theory and practice to enable us make the world better than it is. This philosophy is actually concerned about the practical way of life. So that explains the four. Now, from our study, we said one and two. That's a philosophy. That's Socrates' conception of philosophy and philosophy as contemplation. He said they are similar in their view concerning the possibility of the use of philosophy to effect changes in the society. And they are different from three because three merely calls for conceptual analysis and linguistic clarification. Now said the fourth one, that's philosophy as unity of theory and practice. He said it unites all the previous three conceptions that were discussed previously. Now, let us move to the branches of philosophy. Now, from here, you can see we have different branches of philosophy. The first one is epistemology. The second one is metaphysics. The third one is ethics. And the last one is logic. Now, epistemology, they are philosophical study of knowledge. They answer questions such as what is knowledge? Can we have knowledge? Is knowledge achievable? How do we get this knowledge? And the second one, that is metaphysics. They discuss about reality of life and they answer questions such as what are the things that actually exist? What is the nature of conscience? Do I have conscience? Is there God? Those are the kind of questions that metaphysics ask. Likewise, ethics. Ethics is a philosophical study of morality. It answers questions such as what makes an action right or what makes it wrong? Am I doing the right thing? What does right and wrong actually mean? So it focuses more on moral behavior. And the logic, that's the last branch of philosophy, is study reasons and arguments. It answers questions such as what is argument, what makes an argument works, what makes an argument fails. It talks about a premise and conclusion of an argument. So that is what we focus majorly on the first study session. So we'll be moving to the second study session now, which is epistemology. Can you please send the slide back to study session 2? Thank you. Now, epistemology. From our introduction, I told you that epistemology is a study of knowledge. So we are going to expatiate more on this. Now, historically, the term epistemology is from Greek words, and it is divided into two, episteme and logos. Now, when we bring these two words together, that is how we have epistemology. That is episteme, logos. Now, what does these words mean? Now, episteme means knowledge and logos means science. Now, from this, epistemology can be viewed as the theory of science, theory or science of knowledge. So from that word, the meaning of epistemology have actually been carved out. So epistemology is a branch of philosophy that concerns itself with such questions relating to sources, scope, or extent and justification of knowledge. It answers questions such as what is knowledge? Can we have knowledge and how do we get knowledge? Then we move to the next slide, which talks about sources of knowledge. There are debates from different kinds of people with different beliefs. Such people are categorized as empiricists and rationalists. They are from empiricism and rationalism. Now, this category of people, they ask questions about genuine source of knowledge. Now, the empirists, They now believe that sense experience is the ultimate source of knowledge. And for the rationalists from their side, they said reason. From the word rationalist, reason, they said it is the ultimate source of genuine knowledge. Now, if you listen carefully, you will see that I focus more on ultimate source. The reason why I focus more on ultimate source here is because empiricists, they do not deny the role of reason. Likewise, the rationalists, they do not deny the role of sense experience. But each maintain its own thesis, because while empiricism accord priority to sense experience, rationalism accord priority to reason. Now, before we start to explore the argument developed by different philosophers in search for knowledge, we first need to understand what philosopher means by knowledge. Now, traditionally, there are three different types of knowledge. Traditionally, as a practical knowledge, the knowledge you gain from skills, knowledge by acquaintance when you are close to somebody like a wise people, or you are used to something, you have in-depth knowledge of it, just like your laptop. When you open your laptop, you know where sign is. Those are kind of knowledge. If another person comes from outside to use your laptop, they might be asking you such a question that where is at, where is true, where is this, and factual knowledge. Those are traditional kind of knowledge. Now, one of the first philosophers attempts a definition of knowledge, and this person was Plato. The main concern for Plato was to distinguish knowledge from belief. Now, he gave the example of two guides. One knows the road to a certain destination, and the other, he just used guesswork to get to that destination. Both guides actually arrive at their destination, but which one is more reliable? The person that is using the guide is more reliable. So that is when it comes to knowledge of something and doing the guesswork. Now, so most people would argue that the guide who has expertise is more reliable. This is why Plato argued that true belief gives us knowledge of the world only by coincidence. It is never really certain and could change at any time. For example, I may believe in aliens, and aliens may actually exist. But if I cannot give an adequate reason for my claim, I can't actually call that knowledge. So Plato argued that for a factual claim to be knowledge, it has to be believed, it has to be true, it has to be justified. His definition of knowledge is therefore that it must be justified through belief. For example, you are going to a country, let's say France. You must believe that there is a country called France. It must be true that Paris that you are going to actually is in France, and it must be justifiable. That means I can read up about it. If I go to encyclopedia or Wikipedia, I must be able to see something like Paris. Then we can substantiate that it is knowledge. Now, the types of knowledge. There are different types of knowledge, some of which are analytics or a priori, synthetic or a posteriori. So these are the type of knowledge that we focus on this our study session. Now, analytic or a priori can only be established through pure reason, while synthetic or a posteriori knowledge can only be established through sense. This is similar to empiricist and the rationalist point of view. Now, some example of analytic or a priori knowledge are all bachelors are unmarried male. That is a simple fact. Every bachelor, so far the person is a bachelor, is not married. If I say 2 plus 2 is 4, everybody knows the answer. So those are kind of analytic or a priori knowledge. They are based on pure reason. Now, let me give you an example of a posteriori or synthetic knowledge. There are 20 students in this class. Are there actually 20 students? Because presently I'm looking at 567 students in the class. Can you see that this kind of knowledge is true sense, which is not actually accurate. Then all metals when heated expand. Is it all metal that expand when heated? So you can actually now see the difference between the two. Now, the difference between analytic and a posteriori is that analytic refers to statements derived from pure reason, like I've explained before, while a priori refers to judgment or truth derived from pure reason. And in the same way, synthetic refers to statement from sense experience, and a posteriori refers to knowledge or truth derived from experience. So then we discussed about theory of truth. That's a skepticism from our discussion. Now, to be skeptical about something is to doubt or have reservation about the truth or a particular statement. So skepticism is also a philosophical movement. You know, there are several forms of skepticism, but they are all based on philosophical doubts. To what extent can we trust our sense? That is what skepticism is actually about. So what can we know for certain? Can we know anything at all? And there are some theory in this respect. The first theory in this respect is correspondence theory of truth. Now, according to this theory, a statement is true if it corresponds to reality or an actual state of affairs. In other words, a statement is true if it conforms to a fact. This theory emphasizes agreement between belief and fact. That means you have a belief and there is a fact on ground. If the two conforms, then we are talking about correspondence theory of truth. Then the other one, the second one is coherence theory of truth. Now, according to this theory, a statement is true if it coheres with an already established system of truth. This theory sees truth as a relation between judgment and the system to which it belongs. This theory emphasizes agreement among beliefs. And the third one is pragmatic theory of truth. This theory considers the idea of truth to be an affair of practical experience. That is, the truth of a statement or proposition is determined by its practicability, how practicable it is. Therefore, a proposition is true if what is affirmed is practicable or realizable. I believe you should know this theory of truth offhand. Correspondence theory of truth, reality on actual state of an affair. That statement is true if it conforms to fact. Coherence theory of truth, it must conform with what is already existing, a system of truth that is already existing. I can drive 2 hours to Ibadan. Is already existing. If I now said 1 hour to Oyo, does it actually conform to already existing truth? If yes, it is coherence theory of truth. If no, then you discard such as false. Then the pragmatic theory of truth. That means a proposition must be practicable. Now, so with this, we come to the end of the second study session. Then we moved to the third study session. So the third study session discusses metaphysics. So here we discuss extensively on metaphysics. Now, when you hear metaphysics, three things should come to your mind. The first one is that it is a Greek word. If you can recall, we said philosophy is a Greek word, epistemology is a Greek word, metaphysics too is a Greek word. So in defining metaphysics, you should know first thing, it is a Greek word. Then what next? It is divided into two, meta and physical. Did you now get the idea? You can see that with that, it is a so you can see that with that, it is a it's make it easier to understand. It is a Greek word and it is divided into two. Now, the meta, which is the first part of the definition, is said after or beyond. And the physical, that's the second part. He said it's physics. Physics, something that is physical, as it sounds literally physical. So in literal sense, metaphysics can be translated as beyond physical. Beyond physical. Okay, for those saying I should increase the volume of my voice, noted, I will do so. Now, metaphysics is a branch of philosophy investigating the fundamental nature of being and the world that encompasses it. So the fundamental nature of being is the meta, and the word that encompasses it is the physical. So metaphysics attempt to answer two basic questions, which is ultimately what is there, and the second one is what is it like? What is there and what is it like? Now, according to authors like Aristotle, St. Thomas Aquinas, Hutto and Richard Taylor, and some other philosophers, they say metaphysics is a branch of philosophy that is concerned with the question of the ultimate constituent and origin of the universe. It deals with questions of first principle, causality, and essence. So metaphysics can therefore be regarded as a comprehensive account of the universe. Now, every comprehensive account of experience of the world or universe is informed by a theory of being or principle of reality. You know, reality is central to all metaphysical inquiry. When we say metaphysical, something physical, something real. So reality is critical to it to explain something physical. So topic of metaphysical investigation, it includes existence, objects and their properties, space and time, cause and effect, and even possibility, how possible it is. Then we discussed about branches of metaphysics, which is ontology and cosmology. We said ontology investigates into basic category of being and how they relate to one another. Then the cosmology, it understands the origin and meaning of the universe by thought alone. That's a cosmology. Now, according to this, we now focus on some school of thought in a metaphysical perspective. The school of thought that we focus on from our discussion were idealism and materialism. Idealism and materialism. So we focus more on idealism and materialism. Now, what does it mean when we say idealism? Generally, in the history of philosophy, the two basic schools of thoughts were idealism and materialism that we focus on this study session. So idealism, this theory comes from idea. From the word idealism, you can infer idea. Now, it takes that idea, spirit, or non-matter provides the origin and the ultimate constituent of the universe. This means that physical and external world that we see, he said they are products that depends on idea, since ideas are conceived in the mind. In other words, the idealists believe that the physical world exists, but its reality and existence depend on the mind. That means someone have thought about it before they come into existence. And this confirms the common adage by the idealist that to be is to perceive. And when you want to see something, you have to first think about it. Some of us, we encourage ourselves with such words that what you want to see, you say it, that you perceive it. You say it until it becomes real. That's the idea behind the idealism. And for materialism, so the materialists, those are people that believe in materialism, they hold the position that matter is the basic substance of everything. That matter is the basic substance of everything. That is, the ultimate constituent of the universe is matter. From our definition, we say matter is anything that have space and occupies weight. So they believe matter is the basics of everything. So matter is the basis of everything to the materialist. Now, it must be noted that the materialists, they do not deny the existence of spirit and God. What they are saying is that the existence of entity like God, spirit, angels, mind, and so on must be explainable in material terms. That is, if they can't see it materially, it does not exist. In other words, why the idealists are saying that idea is primary, the materialists are saying that matter is primary. Can you now see the difference between idealist and materialist? One believe in idea, the other believe in matter. One says, for me to believe, I must see it, I must feel it. The other said, no, I don't have to see it, I don't have to touch it before I believe it. So that creates the kind of boundary between idealism and materialism. Then we went ahead to give some definition as regards to metaphysics on that study session. The first one is universal and particulars. What do we mean when we say universal? What do we mean when we say particular? Now, universal refers to concepts like humanity, beauty, justice, goodness, and so on and so forth, while particulars are individual things that exist in the universe. For example, a man, a woman, a car, and so on and so forth. So those are particular things, while universal things are something abstract: beauty, justice, goodness, faith, belief. Such are universal. So universal are what the individual things share in common. Particular things come into being and pass away, while universal remain or subsist. So for instance, there particular men and women give an instance of humanity, but no particular man or woman is humanity in itself. So we also notice that universal in particular objects or things that exhibit them. So then we move to the second one, that's the substance and the quality. Substance and qualities. Now, metaphysics raise question concerning which of the substances and qualities actually represent the constituent of the universe. Substances are regarded as a substance which is not open to sensory observation, but determine the nature of those which are open to senses. So he said the qualities are attributes or the substance and the attribute of the substance. That's quality. And quality are the ones that are open to sense. For example, size, shape, color, texture. That's when we talk about quality. Then we went ahead to differentiate between metaphysics and epistemology. That's what we discussed in the second study session and what we discuss here. That's the third study session. For some reason, we are human beings and we have tendency to confuse an inquiry into nature of things, which is a epistemology, into how we know about them, which is metaphysics. So metaphysics is the nature of things. Oh, sorry, I mixed that up. Metaphysics is the nature of things and epistemology is how we know about them. So if we relate these two together, we will have a deeper understanding of what we have been discussed. So with that, we came to the end of the third study session from our discussion. Then we moved to the last study session, which is a fallacy. Fallacy. So fallacy is the fourth study session that we will be discussing on. Yeah, I saw a question that said the slide is not responding. It's not everything that is on the slide. When you read more from your study material, you will see all these that I am discussing there. So thank you. Now, fallacy. What is fallacy? Fallacy, if you observe, you will see that we have been taking the branch of philosophy one after the other from the so, okay, it is noted. I will take it slow. Pauline and Ukachi. So, from epistemology to metaphysics, then we have ethics and logic. Now, this fallacy, it focus more on the logic part branch of epistemology. Now, in the fourth study session, okay, uh, Fadeyi Dorcas is asking me to repeat what I said between metaphysics and epistemology. You know, when we were discussing, we said metaphysics is it talks about the nature of things. Metaphysics talks about nature. That's a physical, you know, beyond physical nature of things, matter, things as relate to matter and all that. Why epistemology talks about knowledge. So now, epistemology talking about knowledge is telling us that how we know more about the nature of things. I believe that should answer the question you are asking. Now, let's move to study session 4. Now, study session 4 is about fallacy. And I've been trying to tell you that fallacy is under logic, and logic is a branch of philosophy. So bear that in mind as we progress. Now, what is fallacy? We introduce fallacy as a bad argument that tends to persuade us. So we talk about fallacy. Please, all questions should be suspended to the end of the class. Thanks for your understanding. So we introduce fallacy as a bad argument that tends to persuade us even though it is faulty. Now in this chapter, we look at common fallacies and examine why each is a bad argument and also why it nevertheless tends to persuade us. You know, fallacies are persuasive for varieties of reason. So this study session, we discuss about the element of distraction that we have. We talk about resemblance, how arguments, how a fallacy can relate to good arguments, and how confusion of emotion can lead to fallacy also. So we talk about that. So what is fallacy? Fallacy is argument that tends to persuade us, but they should not persuade. Fallacy is an error in reasoning. They tend to be psychologically persuasive. When you hear such arguments, you'll be persuaded to believe that they are true, that it is a sound argument, it is a valid argument, but it is not. They are fallacious arguments. So they said so the third one said fallacy is an invalid argument that has deceptive appearance of being valid. I believe this third definition, it validates what I said, that is an error in reasoning. Now, so of course, we will not call a bad argument a fallacy just because it happens to persuade some unwary person. There must be a common tendency for an argument of a certain kind to persuade people, even though they should not be persuaded before we call the argument a fallacy. Then we move to categories of fallacy. Now, fallacy can be categorized to the kind of trick they use. There are three different primary ways an argument can trick you. So the first one, an argument can trick you by distracting your attention away from the weak point of the argument. Just like a sleight of a hand, like a magician, like the way they will distract you from something, then they will create another thing for you to see. That's the kind of way magicians, they tend to work. Now, so an argument can appear to be sound because of a counterfeit resemblance to an argument that really is sound. Because you have seen an argument like that is sound, you tend to believe the other argument, these two must be true because I've seen one that is true before. Now, he said this is also a trick that a magician uses. They substitute the original with dummy, but you won't know. So, and the third way, that's the third way an argument can trick you. An argument can persuade you by confusing emotion with reason. When they say that you are emotional about something, they introduce that emotional way to trick you into believing it. So that's another way of trapping you into a fallacious argument. Hence, fallacy will now be categorized into the first one is distraction fallacy. The second one is resemblance fallacy. The third one is emotion fallacy. And the fourth one is combination of emotion and resemblance fallacy. So those are the four categories of fallacy that we are going to focus on our discussion here. Now, let us take it one after the other. The distraction fallacy, it is categorized into three. The first one is false dilemma. This fallacy is a bad argument because it has a false premise. It presents an either-or choice. So when you are having an argument and you see a question of either-or, when you see either-or, you pay attention to it because such argument could be a fallacious argument. It tends to persuade you through a technique of distraction that if you don't take this, this will be the result. The second one is slippery slope. Now, sometimes we object to something on the ground that if it is done, then something else will happen or is likely to happen as a result. And if so, then something else, and then something else, and then something else. That means from one bad thing to another bad, if you don't do this, it's likely to get worse and to get worse and to get, like you are slipping through something. That is what slippery slope, that is what it does. The third one is strawman. The strawman fallacy is more complicated than the false dilemma or slippery slope, but it's also rely on the sleight of hand technique of distraction. Strawman consists of making your own position appear strong by making opposition argument appear weak. When you are giving you are engaging an argument, then you make the opposition argument, make it appear weak, and you make yours appear strong. Then you are using a strong man's argument. Now, let's move to resemblance fallacy. That one has four. The first one is affirming the consequence. The second one is denying the antecedent. The third one is equivocation. And the fourth one is begging the question. You see, all these categories of fallacy, they will be explained with examples so that you will have in-depth understanding of them. Now, fallacy of affirming the consequence. So fallacy of affirming the consequence and denying the antecedent, they goes hand in hand. When I give you an example, you will understand it better. Now, for equivocation, when a word or an expression shifts meaning from one premise to another, it commits fallacy of equivocation. And the begging the question, that's the last one there, says stated at the beginning of this chapter that all but one of the fallacies we discuss are either valid or have a false premise. So when it have a false premise, that means the point of question in the argument is not being taken care of. Then we can say such fallacy is begging the question. The third one is emotion fallacy. We categorize it into three: appeal to force, appeal to pity, and prejudicial language. We will give an example to support this also so that you can have in-depth understanding. And the last one is emotion and resemblance fallacy. And that one is categorized into two. That's appeal to authority and attacking the person. So now let's move to examples of these fallacies so that we can substantiate what we have been discussing since morning. The next slide, please. Okay, good. Now, first dilemma, see this example. He said, either we legalize drugs or we keep building new prisons and filling them with drug offenders. If you recall, I said if there is an argument that has either or choice, you should be attentive to such argument because they can be fallacious. Now, in literary sense, if we don't legalize drugs, every drug offender will be sent to prison. Correct. But prison is not the only way to tackle this. I believe you agree with me. Now, the implicit premise obviously is that we should not keep building new prisons and filling them with drug offenders. This type of argument is typical of a false dilemma. Now, the arguer claim that there are two alternatives and that one is unacceptable, so we should choose the other. But in fact, there are more alternatives than the two stated. We are distracted by undesirable or preposterous one of the alternatives is, and we tend not to ask whether these are the only two alternatives. In the example given, there are other alternatives. Yeah, we can reduce the amount of prison times that is mandated for some of all the drug offenders. We could substitute house arrest with drug testing. You know, whenever you are tested for drug, then we place you on house arrest instead of sending you to prison. Is another option, which is not in the argument. So such arguments like this are seen as false dilemma. Now, the other one is slippery slope. Now, pay attention to these slippery slope arguments. Now they make us register handguns. Then pretty soon, it will be all guns. If that happens, then they will be in a position to take our guns away. Then we will be all set up for a police station. Now, what this argument is trying to substantiate is that when you register your handgun, then they will make a law, then they will seize all the handguns, then they will put it in a police station, then they don't have to equip the police station. Now, let's look at this argument critically to see the fallacy that is there. It said our attention is distracted by the thought of how horrible the situation is that threatens us, according to the argument. We do not attend to the question of whether all the steps down the slippery slope are really connected. Are they actually connected? Can people seize? Can the government actually seize handguns to equip police stations? You know, when you have doubtful steps like that, is an example of a fallacious argument that falls under the category of slippery slope. Then the straw man case, he said, advocates of sex education want to give kids license to have sex with no consequence. This is actually a false, is a fallacious argument. So what this is doing is that is making the opposition argument weaker, because those people that are advocating for sex education, they are advocating so that people will have, children specifically, will have foreknowledge of what sex education is. If at all they want to engage in sex, they will know how to protect themselves and to keep themselves away from sex, those that want to keep away, so that they will know the consequences. But you see from this advocate, he is trying to make the argument of sex advocates weaker by saying that they are giving kids license to have sex. Such an example is example of a straw man's fallacy. Now, the next slide. Now, resemblance fallacy. The first one is affirming the consequence. Now, let's look at this example. If the president does a good job, the economy remains stable. The economy has remained stable, so the president has done a good job. You know, is it only the job of the president doing a good job that make economy stable? So when you have such question, you can see that is a fallacious argument. So affirming the consequence. What this is just trying to do is affirming what the first sentence said, that if the president does a good job, the economic will remain stable. So the economy is stable. Then they now infer that the president has done a good job. If you see a statement like this, it is a fallacious statement that fall under category of resemblance fallacy. Now, denying the antecedent, said if he denies that he knows her, then he's been cheating on me. He admitted that he knows her, so he has not been cheating on me. So from this, you can see the last part of the argument is denying what the first part is saying. That's what it means by denying the antecedent. This is also a fallacious argument. Then the equivocation. He said, you are perfectly willing to believe in miracle, such as a person landing on the moon. If this is so, you should not be so skeptical of miracles described in the Bible. Now, in the first occurrence of this argument, miracle means something that is amazing, that you wouldn't have thought could be done. But in the second occurrence, miracle means something that defies the law of nature. Now, the fact that the first kind of miracle occurred does not make it more likely that the second kind occurred. So when you see this kind of argument, is a fallacy of equivocation. Then the last one is begging the question. Now, begging the question, you know, we say is not answering the actual question that is raised from the argument. Now, let's see this example. Whatever is less dense than water will float, because such objects won't sink in water. Now, let's split this argument into two. It said whatever is less dense than water will float. Now, if I ask you, anything that floats on water is less dense than water, that means it's not heavier than water. That is why it is floating. And anything that is floating is not sinking. I believe you understand me. So the second part of the sentence now said, because such objects won't sink in water, does not actually complement the first sentence, whatever is less dense than water will float. I believe you understand me. Now, the premise of the argument happens to be true. Whatever is less dense than water will float. It is true. But the conclusion of the matter, the conclusion of the argument, it follows from the premise in the trivial sense that it simply restates the premise in different words, but it does not actually tell us more about what is less dense than water. So the argument has trivial pattern of argument that begs the question. It begs the question. So technically, this pattern satisfies the definition of a valid. So technically, you can see that this does not validate what is being said. So it is a bad argument because the premise does not give a reason for believing the conclusion. So let me give you another example of this so that you have another perspective into understanding this. For example, he said, why should I be honest? The person is asking a question from an argument. Now, instead of telling the person why the person should be honest, you now said because you should not be dishonest. Do you understand now? Why should I be honest? You now say because you should not be dishonest. So this kind of argument is missing the question that is being raised by the argument. So that is why we said it is begging the question. So now we move to the next one. That's the emotional fallacy. Emotional fallacy. Next slide, please. So emotional fallacy, we have appeal to force, appeal to pity, and prejudicial language. Appeal to force, appeal to pity, and prejudicial language. Now, let me give you an example of this. So you are an environmentalist. I would think twice about that if I were you. There are a lot of people in this town who depend on the lumber industry. They are not going to be very happy with you if they find out about your view on preserving a forest. Now, let us look at this example. Now, it is not that a certain belief is made desirable, but rather it will be harmful. Now, what this kind of argument is trying to establish is that it is trying to kind of make an appeal in a forceful way to the person at the opposite side of the argument. He said you are an environmentalist. People will not be happy with you. It's kind of using the threat of people to force the person to change his perspective about preserving a forest. For environmentalists, they believe that you should not be cutting tree in the forest. And people in the lumber industry, they cut tree to make a source of livelihood. So now the person is now trying to make an argument to appeal in a way so that to force the environmentalist to change his perspective about preserving the forest. Now, the other one is appeal to pity. Now, appeal to pity, the example there is that I am qualified for the job. I have a little experience in the area and I have been out of work for 2 months. So I really need the money. Now, you can see from this example that is a fallacious example. You said you are qualified for the job, but you have little experience. That means you want the employer to employ you, but you have little experience about the job. Now, see where the pity comes in. He said, I've been out of work for 2 months, so I really need money. So he's now trying to make that so that the person will pity the applicant so that they can employ him for the job, him or her for the job. Can you see that kind of arguments now? Now, these are kind of arguments that lawyers use in the law courts. When they say, my client, he has a aged mother at home, he has 3 children, he has people that are dependent on him. My Lord, kindly tamper justice with mercy. What they are trying to say is that they are appealing for pity for the person. So this is an example of a fallacy. Then the last one is a prejudiced language. Now, the example there is Chris outgrew the naive view of human being as mechanistic, robot-like creature and came to be more sophisticated view of human being as autonomous and possessing a will. Now, what this is doing is that it provides a motive for adopting a position without giving any evidence either for the arguer's own or against an opponent's opposition. You can see that this kind of argument is also tricky. So now, with this, we now move to the last category of fallacy, which is emotion and resemblance fallacy. So this category of fallacy has two main this thing. That's the appeal to authority and attacking the person. Appeal to authority and attacking the person. Now, these fallacies appeal to emotion by using your disapproval of a person to turn you against a person's point of view, or by using your admiration for a person to turn you in favor of that person. That's appeal to authority or attacking the person. So at the same time, these two fallacies, they resemble good arguments. There is no doubt about that. Now, let's see this example. For appeal to authority, he said majority of doctors thinks that the moral of our young people have declined. Majority of doctors think that the morals of our young people have declined. Now, looking at this argument on its own, you will think that there is no fallacy there. But now, let me point out the fallacious this thing there for you. Is doctor a qualified person to study moral behavior of people? The answer is no. Do you understand? So because he's a qualified doctor does not make him give assertive statements on moral behavior of people. I believe you now understand that the perspective at which this kind of fallacy is coming from. A doctor can only talk authoritatively on his field, not on other people's field. But because you want to appeal to an authority, say, even my doctor say I should do this. Or even my doctor say I can build my house on bridge. Can you see that is a fallacious argument? So that is how to identify fallacy in that category. Then, now moving to the other one, attacking the person. Attacking the person. Now the example there says, our former mayor favored legalizing prostitution, but he was the most corrupt mayor we ever had. There is no way we should legalize it. Can you see what this argument is doing? Now, this argument, what it's trying to do is to rubbish the image of the mayor. In this instance, a governor. You want to rubbish the image of the governor instead of focusing more on why you legalize prostitution. You are tarnishing the image of the person that was in power when such was legalized so that you can substantiate your own claim. Such is a fallacious argument. Now, there is a note here. He said, it is sometimes legitimate to appeal to an authority. The fact that an expert makes a claim about something that truly lies within this person's area of expertise is a reason in favor of believing it. Also, pointing out correctly that someone is prone to lie can be a good reason against believing what this person says. So appealing to authority is a fallacy when a person really isn't an authority in the area in question. And attacking the person is a fallacy when the person gives reason for this, for his or her point of view. Reasons that can be judged independently of the person's character or motive. In such cases, what makes an appeal to authority or attacking on the person a bad argument is that the premise are irrelevant to the conclusion. So with this, we have come to the end of the first study session that were discussed in this. We have come to the end of the first study session that were discussed in this course, Logic and Philosophy. And I believe we have had an interesting discussion so far. I can see that many of you have raised a lot of questions here, and hopefully we'll be looking at it one after the other.
Thank you, so, Participator.
Yeah.
Dan, you can ask your question.
Thank you for the wonderful lecture. you make mention of some terminologies which are not really in the course material, like cosmology, like ontology, like logic. Those terminologies and their constituents are not in the course material.
Okay. Well, there is no much focus. Yes. For example, in ontology, cosmology that I made mention, they are just give you deeper understanding of branch of metaphysics. But notwithstanding, this material, I will make it available for you so that you can read more about it. Now, ontology, they are branch of metaphysics. Metaphysics is, we have metaphysics from philosophy. Metaphysics is a branch, and from metaphysics, we now have ontology and cosmology. Ontology investigates into basic category of being and how they relate to one another, while cosmology, they seek to understand the origin and meaning of the universe by thought alone. So that is just, well, I will give you the material on this so that you can read more about it to have a in-depth understanding.
Afolabi Olamide, your question. Afolabi Olamide.
Good afternoon, sir.
Can you please speak louder?
Thank you for the lecture. My question is about skepticism. You said there is correspondence of truth, there is coherence, and there is pragmatics. Please, can you give an example of correspondence and an example of coherence?
Correspondent theory of truth. Now, for correspondent theory of truth, we said according to this theory, a statement is true if it corresponds to reality or an actual state of affairs. Now, let's look for an example that comes to mind. There is a process in place. You are not aware of the process. Then you went to do, for example, you want to write your report now, your final report. The already established procedure is to have your introduction, chapter 1, chapter 2, you have your abstract and all that. But you are not aware that there's something like this in place before. Then you went ahead to write your report. Now, you want to submit it. When you went there to submit, the person now looked at it. Then the person sees that is in line with already established. What will happen? The report will be accepted. But if it is not in line with that already established process, it will be rejected. Do you now understand now with that example? That's an example of correspondence theory of truth. Now, coherence theory of truth. They said the statement is true if it's correct with already established system of truth. This theory sees truth as relation between judgment and the system to which it belongs. Now, this can be related to when you go to law courts now, you want to make a case. They will say there is a case against so person that has been done maybe in the past 3 years or in the past 4 years. So because that person win it 4 years, what is happening presently is in line with that. So you too, you will win it. They call that precedence. Okay. I believe you now understand what I'm saying now. So
18,242.
Yeah.
Your question.
Okay, good evening, ma. Good evening, sir. So please, when you were talking about types of knowledge, you mentioned that traditionally we have 3 types of knowledge: practical and knowledge by acquaintance and factual knowledge. So when we are asked, are we going to write the analytic and synthetic or the practical and the factual?
When you are asked, your focus is on analytics or a priori and synthetic or a posteriori types of knowledge. That is what we focus on here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Otedola Mojisola.
Okay, sir. We appreciate you for the lecture, sir.
You're
So my
welcome.
question is concerning skepticism in theory of truth. When you
Okay.
were talking to us, you tried to define what skepticism means, then also the types of. I want you to take that again, so I didn't get it at all. I mean the theory of truth and the types, as in correspondence and all of that you mentioned.
Okay. We talked about skepticism. Now we said skepticism is about when you have a doubt about something, you are being skeptical. That's the literary meaning of skepticism. Then we go about theories in line with this. There we mention correspondence theory of truth. We mention coherence theory of truth, then pragmatist theory of truth. Now, in correspondence theory of truth, we said a statement is true if it corresponds to reality or an actual state of affairs. I just re-explained that, making your report as a case study. Then the coherence theory of truth, according to this, a statement is true if it coheres with an already established system of truth. Then I make example of that with what we normally experience in the court of law. Then I said something like precedence. Then the pragmatic theory of truth. This theory considers the idea of truth to be an affair of practical experience. Because you have experienced it, then it is true. Did I make
Thank
myself
you.
clear?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
All right.
Christabel, your question. Otodo, Onome, your question. Balogun Bolanle, your question.
Thank you. Thank you, sir, for the presentation. My question is on the types of fallacy. You explained the straw man fallacy, that
Okay.
you are trying to make your opinion stronger than that of the opponent. But I'm confusing it with equivocation. Please, if you can differentiate that for me. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Now, straw man fallacy, we said you make your position appear stronger, making your position appear weaker. Then in equivocation, we said you shift meaning from one premise to another. Now, the example that was given for equivocation, you know, there is no doubt about the straw man. Said the straw man is you are making your own position to appear stronger while making the position of other appear weaker. There's no mighty things about that. There's no tricky. Now let's go to equivocation. Now, equivocation, you are perfectly, the example given there, that you are perfectly willing to believe in miracle, such as a person landing on the moon. If this is so, you shouldn't be so skeptical of miracle described in the Bible. Now, from this argument, he's trying to relate that because you believe a person has gone to the moon, you should not be finding it difficult to believe that that miracle happened in the Bible. But the thing here is that, you know, miracle means something that is amazing. And it's something that it cannot be done on a normal distance. But now, is that the second occurrence there that you believe you should not be finding it skeptical to believe in what is in the Bible. So it does not make it more likely that because a person has gone to the moon, what is in the Bible is true of us. I believe you understand me now. It means something that defies the law of nature, that is going to the moon. So because you now believe that somebody has been to the moon, what is in the Bible is true, or you believe that what is in the Bible because it is true, somebody that has gone to the moon is also true. You cannot, because one is true, the other is true. So that is what equivocation is trying to establish.
Famuriyo Timileyin, your question.
Good afternoon, ma.
You're welcome.
Please, ma, on the types of knowledge you told us analytical or a priori, then synthetic or a
A
posteriori.
posteriori.
Then,
Yes.
yes, then later you differentiate between analytic and a priori. Does it mean that the two are not the same thing?
The two are synonymous. They can go together. Yes. So now the reason why what we are just trying to refer, if you read well, you know, said the only difference between analytic and a priori is that analytic refer to statement derived from pure reason, while a priori refer to judgment. One is statement, one is the judgment. They go hand in hand. When you make a statement, you must be able to judge it so that you can accept it as knowledge. So they go together. The two are they are more like a synonymous. You can use it interchangeably. So they're acceptable.
Bola Gade Emmanuel.
Good afternoon, sir.
You're
Thank you
welcome.
for the presentation. Yeah, I want you to shed more light on judicial language,
On
judicial prejudicial language.
okay, the prejudice language. All right. Now the example we gave there is that Chris outgrew the naive view of human beings as mechanistic robots, like creatures, and came to the more sophisticated view of human beings as autonomous and possessing a will. Now, what we are saying here is that Chris did not actually substantiate why he gave a view that human beings are mechanistic, they are robotic like creature. You know, when you are giving an argument, you must be able to back it up with substantial information. He said, okay, human beings are like mechanistic, robotic like creature. How? He did not give us why. You come to that conclusion that human being is robots. I hope you understand me. When I say Popola is intelligent, I must be able to back it up. Why is he intelligent? Because he has A in GST 114. Because he has done this, he has done this, he has done this. Do you understand now?
Okay.
Thank you.
Damilola.
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, sir. Hello, sir. Good afternoon, sir.
Go ahead
Can
with
hear
your
you, go on,
question.
please.
Yes, sir. Sir, please, I'm not clear with types of knowledge that was explained. If the facilitator can just quickly go over it in his own little way, it's not clear to myself.
Now, types of knowledge. I first said traditionally, there are 3 types of knowledge. That's traditional. That is, how can you acquire knowledge traditionally? I hope you now understand me. That is why we now mention practical knowledge, knowledge by acquaintance, factual knowledge. That's traditional, how you acquire knowledge. Now, based on our study, philosophical way of acquiring knowledge, we now said analytic or a priori and synthetic or a posteriori. Then we said these two is either by sense, by reason. Do you understand me now?
Yeah. Banji Ajibola. Banji Ajibola.
No, sir.
Otobo, your
Go ahead with
question.
your question, please.
Dominic, your question.
Thank you, sir.
Hello.
Hello, thank you, sir. My question is, in the definition of metaphysics, if I say beyond physics or beyond physical, am I saying the same thing? Is it
Yes.
accepted?
Yes. It's acceptable. It's acceptable. You are in line.
Adefi, your question.
Is
Sir, please, I want you to explain the universals and the particulars.
Okay. Now, we relate universal to concepts like something that can be felt. He said universal is like something like humanity, beauty, justice, something that is common to all. That is what we relate to universal, while particular is something that is individualistic. For example, a shirt, a car, man, that woman. They are particular to that person, while universal is something that is common. Faith, belief, goodness, love. So that is it.
Oyedele Fumilola. Oyedele Fumilola.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good
Please
afternoon.
help me to explain the categories of fallacy.
I can't hear you.
How to explain further the categories of fallacy?
Categories of fallacy.
Which in particular?
The distraction fallacy.
Your question is not clear.
Fallacy. Yes, distraction fallacy. The category under it.
Okay. Want me to explain it again?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
You want to take us back? Where were you when we were explaining it?
I was online, so I didn't get it.
So maybe you should get the video and look through it again, so that it will be clear. Next question, please.
Josie, your question. Josie, your question.
Good afternoon, sir.
Can you please speak louder?
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir. My question is on philosophy, the branches.
We hardly hear what you are saying.
Hello. Good afternoon, sir. Are you hearing me?
Good afternoon.
I think my question is on branches of philosophy.
Eh?
Here we have 4.
Branches of philosophy.
Yes,
okay.
Here we have 4.
Okay.
But the ethics and the logic, you did not
Yes.
mention them. It's only metaphysics and the
Yes, that is how far we are going in this course.
Meaning that the other ones are not inclusive.
Yes, they are not inclusive. If you are going further in logic and philosophy, then we will touch the remaining parts of philosophy of the branches I mentioned. Yeah.
Okay. Oh. Thank you. If you have any other question, you can chat with your facilitator. So we have come to the end of this lecture.
So thank you, everyone.
Do you have anything to say?
I want to thank every one of them for coming. I wish you all the best in your examinations. Success in Jesus' name. Thank you.
Thank you.